Hello everyone, today we're going to be talking about all of the books that I read in February. You guys know how this works. I'm going to be going through every book, telling you my thoughts about them and all that sort of stuff. I actually read 18 books in February, which is kind of unheard of. Like, I feel like my average is around like 12 to 14. The fact that I read 18 is just insane. It's insane. We're gonna go through all of them. I had some major hits, I had some major misses, and we're just gonna get started. So I hope you enjoy the video. We started off February so strong with a 5-star read, and that was 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. I actually have a full reading vlog exclusively for this novel. I read this for the first episode of my new series about reading my physical TBR, and this is what the random number generator selected for me, and I'm so glad that it did, because 5 stars. I loved every single minute of it. This is a second chance romance about two black authors in New York. They actually had a week together when they were teenagers, and then something awful kind of tears them apart, but kind of for good reason, because they were very troubled teens. Like, they had a lot of issues, and then now they're both successful writers and they find each other again and kind of have that closure while also re-falling in love for another 7 days in New York. Our main character, Eva, she actually has a child at this stage as well. She is a single mother. So there's a beautiful relationship to explore there, and it's just so freaking good. Like, it was so amazing. These characters felt so raw and so real. Like, I genuinely wanted them to get together so badly. They were absolute soulmates. They were just perfect. I really loved them. The idea of them writing to each other, like through their written work, through their books, and that's how they communicate over the entire time where they weren't in contact, was just such a beautiful concept. I absolutely loved this book. I highly recommend this. I think it is going to be, if not, it's definitely my favorite romance book of all time. It's definitely up there, and I just genuinely recommend it so much to people. The sense of humor as well was fantastic, and yeah, there's literally no critiques. There is no critiques. It's just a perfect book in my eyes. Next, I read a book on Kindle, and I haven't really heard anyone talk about it, so I'm glad to share it with you now. It is called How to Kill Men and Get Away with It by Katie Brent. I feel like that title says it all. This is a debut thriller. It is so much fun. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. We follow our main character, Kitty. She is a social media influencer. She has a stalker as kind of a side plot. She's got a stalker. She's got like 1 million followers on Instagram. She lives in Chelsea in England. One day when she's walking home from a night out with her friends, she accidentally kills a man, and she then gets a taste for it. She's like, oh, I actually kind of like this, especially because the man, like, I mean, I'm not saying he deserved it, but he was very gross towards her, so it was kind of self-defense. She's kind of getting revenge on just all of womankind, and it was just such a good book. It was so good. Definitely trigger warnings for sexual assault and a whole bunch of other stuff. Like, it was definitely quite violent, but I just really liked it. This is kind of my favorite subgenre of books, which is women kind of avenging their gender. I just really like this. It was so fun. It was so hilarious. One of my favorite little touches about it that I feel like said so much about our main character, Kitty, is when she's like talking about her friends and she's first introducing them to the reader. She puts in brackets like how many followers they have on Instagram. It feels very tongue-in-cheek. But one thing I really don't like sometimes is when authors make fun of influencers, and they're like, oh, look how funny like we're being, like making fun of this Instagram influencer and like taking the piss out of them and stereotyping them as like a dumb bimbo. I really like when authors kind of turn that stereotype on its head, and that's definitely what Katie Brent did with this. I genuinely loved it so much, and it was so good. I really cannot wait to see what this author does next, and I hope that some of you will go and read this, because I genuinely feel like if you have very similar reading taste to mine, you will really like this novel. Next, I read The Final Gambit by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is the third, and I thought final. It's literally not even the final book. They're making more books in this world. Safe to say I won't be picking them up, because I rated this 2 out of 5 stars. Yeah, this is the third book in the Inheritance Games trilogy, a novel where we follow our main character who has inherited this massive sum of money and this home from this billionaire. And the billionaire is obsessed with puzzles, so her inheriting all this is kind of like a puzzle for the rest of the family. It just dragged on far too long. Like, this book does not need to exist. Like, we kind of found out the big plot twist of everything in book 2. Like, I just feel like this book really did not need to exist. There was an introduction of a new character who I just thought was so poorly fleshed out and very, very cartoony, like a cartoon villain almost. I just did not love it. It's just, I feel like this series isn't for me. I find it really bland and just a bit boring, unfortunately. I just feel like there are so many better YA mysteries out there, and the love triangle in this is so half-baked. I still have a lot of positive things to say about this. It was definitely like not the most offensive thing in the world. Like, I'm not sitting here being like, this is the worst book I've ever read. Like, it wasted my time. I mean, I do think it wasted my time, but I've definitely read worse, but it's just not to my particular taste. I understand if people do like it, but I don't know, I prefer something a little bit more exciting, and unfortunately this just isn't very exciting, and the pacing was off, and it's just not for me, unfortunately. So yeah, I definitely won't be picking up the next book that is coming out, which I think is called The Brothers Hawthorne. Sorry, I just don't care about these like rich boys. I really don't care. The next 5 books I read for a video, which was I read 5 romance books in 5 days. That was a very interesting video. I feel like I got a 1-star, 2-star, 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star read, which was just very satisfying to me. But we're gonna talk these through very quickly. First of all, I read Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute by Talia Hibbert. This was one of my most anticipated releases of 2023, and I definitely wasn't disappointed. It was kind of everything that I expected. I rated it 3 out of 5 stars, and that does not mean that it's a bad book. Like, a 3-star basically means that it was good. Like, it was a solid read, just like nothing super special. I really love Talia Hibbert. I don't usually read YA romance, but Talia Hibbert is one of my favorite romance authors for like the adult romance, so I was like, I'll give the YA romance a go. And it was definitely very cute and fun and lots of good messages. I really liked the characters. Basically, it's an enemies to lovers, or they used to be childhood friends and then enemies to lovers. Our 2 main characters are both really high achievers, and it's like reverse Grumpy Sunshine as well. So our female main character is very grumpy, and the guy is like the classic good guy that everyone loves. Like, he's just a sweetheart, he's super charismatic, and they're both going for this scholarship where they have to go on this like wilderness survival course first, and the winner of that like gets this big scholarship, and they both end up going on it together and being in close quarters with each other. My one thing is that I wish we got more of the wilderness setting. I wish we got more of the obstacle courses and them competing. I feel like that was one of the main reasons I was really excited for this novel, and unfortunately I think that whole section was like 50 pages at most. I just wish we got more of it. Like, I didn't really care about them at school. I wanted to see them in the woods like surviving and being in close quarters with each other. I think the obsessive compulsive disorder representation here was fantastic. I really liked the 2 main characters, and I thought it was definitely a very fun read. I cannot wait to see what Talia Hibbert does next, like what her next release is going to be. So I think if you are a fan of YA romance, I very highly recommend this, but if you're more of an adult romance reader, then you could probably skip it. But I had fun. I did have a lot of fun. Then I read You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogle. I rated this 2 out of 5 stars. It just wasn't for me, unfortunately. Basically, we follow our 2 main characters, Naomi and Nicholas, and to the public eye, they are in this beautiful relationship. They are engaged, so they're about to get married, but the secret is that they both really hate each other, and they both want the wedding off. However, they will never tell each other that they want the wedding off. They will never leave one another, because whoever is the person to leave automatically becomes the bad guy, and they don't want to be the bad guy. They want to be the scorned, like, victim of this dumping, essentially. So they try and make each other's lives as awful as possible to force the other one out, but neither of them are breaking. It's like a big game of chicken. My issue is that this concept is so fun. Like, the concept is so funny, and there are so many things you could do with it. Like, it could be the most exciting thing, so much good banter, but unfortunately our 2 main characters acted like children, and that wasn't fun for me to read about. There was like one moment where I was like, this is hilarious, and it's when the characters were being super passive aggressive with each other and being like, love you so much honey, can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you, in a way to like annoy each other. Like, that is hilarious to me. But then the other ones would be like just baseless insults that are just like, you suck, like, you're so lame, I hate you, like, boring. And then also there was one moment where our main character puts her fiance's like finger into a glass of water to try and make him wet the bed, and I'm like, are we 8 years old, lads? It was just silly. It was super silly, and I just really didn't like the characters. I thought they were childish, and I didn't like it. I didn't want them to be together. Like, I wanted them to break up or still be unhappy with each other and be in this forced marriage where they hate each other. I did not want them to have a happily ever after. If that makes me cruel, if that makes me as childish as them, fine. I'm petty. I will be petty. Anyways, I did not love this. It definitely wasn't as bad as the 1-star romance that I read this month, but still not great. Next, I read a really fun indie romance, and that is Next of Kin by Hannah Bonham Young. I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. I thought the concept was so great, and these are characters that I did genuinely care about. Basically, our 2 main characters, they are both trying to get custody or guardianship of the siblings in their lives. So our main female main character, she is trying to get custody of this baby that her birth mother has had. But our character Chloe, she's been through the foster system and she did not have a good experience. So she wants to like save her younger sister, her biological younger sister, from that experience. And then our male main character wants to get guardianship of his deaf younger brother who's 15. However, neither of these two, there's one thing about the situation which means that they are not suitable for like the guardianship program, and so they do this thing where they like live together in our main character's apartment, and through that they can try and like get proper guardianship of their siblings. So it's like forced proximity romance, definitely enemies to lovers, grumpy sunshine, or not enemies to lovers, just a bad first impression. First of all, I think what the characters were doing for their siblings was really admirable. So it's just reading about really good people essentially falling in love, and I really respected that. I really liked that. I've definitely read some toxic romances in my time where the characters were super unlikable and not great as human beings. So it's nice to have a change of pace and see people that I just really respect falling in love. It is a debut, so I definitely feel like the author does have room to improve, which is really nice, but I think such a great start. I'm really glad that I read this, and it was just so nice. And there were some great scenes. There were some scenes that I was like, like when he wrote a song for her, I was like, oh, this is a bit cheesy and the lyrics aren't great. But apart from that, it was just fun. It was a nice fast read and really tender and sweet, and I liked what was going on in the characters' lives outside of the actual romance. So I really liked it. 4 out of 5 stars. Then I got another 5-star read this month, and that was Delilah Green Doesn't Care by Ashley Herring Blake. I'm obsessed with this romance, guys. Like, 7 Days in June and Delilah Green Doesn't Care, 2 new favorite romances. This is first of all a sapphic love story, so I'm so glad that it was as good as it was. Our main character Delilah has been hired to be the photographer at her estranged stepsister's wedding, and then the love interest Claire, she is one of the stepsister's like childhood friends. So when Delilah was growing up, she lost her father from a really young age and was kind of stuck living with her stepmother and her stepsister, not really getting along with them. And Claire was one of the girls that kind of made Delilah Green's life a bit harder when they were teenagers. Claire was definitely like the nice one, but still she was part of this friend group that Delilah Green just like did not like and did not get along with. So anyway, they're here in this small town for this wedding. Delilah and Claire are like, oh, we're both kind of attracted to each other. But Claire also is a single mum, so she's got some stuff going on with that. Like, she's got some stuff going on with her ex-partner in terms of like raising the child, and then Delilah's going through all of this like family drama and also wondering like what her life is going to be like. I think she has this potential exhibition for her photography coming up back in New York. It honestly was just such a tender love story. I really loved our characters' journeys and where they went. I feel like the chemistry was so palpable, like it was jumping off the page. I loved them. I wanted them to be together so badly, and the setting of this small kind of prissy small town, I just loved it. It was so good. I loved Ashley Herring Blake's writing style, and I cannot wait to get on to the next one. I believe this is the first in a series of this friend group of just queer women in queer relationships, and I'm absolutely obsessed with that. I just loved it. I recommend this novel to everyone, but especially to my fellow queer women out there. It's so good. It's so good. And then my 1-star read from that video, My Killer Vacation by Tessa Bailey. Ew, this book was so gross. I'm sorry. Sorry if it was an overreaction, but this book was so gross. Basically follow our main character, I forgot her name, but she's like a bit younger than the love interest, so it is age gap. And she's gone on holiday to Cape Cod and she books into her Airbnb and there's a dead body. Then this bounty hunter comes along and he's trying to like solve this murder, and then she's like, I actually love true crime, so I'm gonna help out. And then they just have like a lot of sexual tension and start falling in love while this is happening. So a murder mystery romance. I'm obsessed with that concept, but this was done so poorly. First of all, the murder mystery, I was confused. I was super confused and I was like, I don't fucking know. Like the motives were all wrong. I just didn't really care about it. And then the romance, I just find something so off-putting about a romance novel where everything to do with the romance is entirely based on physical attraction. All the characters are talking about is how hot the other one thinks the other is. And the guy just like sexually objectifying this woman who was like years younger than him was so gross to me, like talking about her perfect tits or her perfect ass. Like I was just like, ooh, like what about her smile? What about her personality? Like, please. It was just gross. Like, I just don't want to hear about it. The sex scenes were disgusting. Also, our male main character literally steals the girl's underwear. Like, the first time they meet, he like goes through her luggage and steals her underwear. Like, literally predator as fuck vibes. I'd be calling the cops on this man. Sorry, like this was just not good. It was just really gross. Sorry if there's any fans. I actually genuinely don't believe there are any fans. I've never seen positive feedback about that book. I am joining the trend of not liking it. Sorry. Anyway, then I read another book for my like reading my physical TBR series. So I do have a full reading vlog on this. It is Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. This is a thriller mystery. Basically our main character Laurel, when her I think youngest child was 15, she goes missing. And then one day in the future, she's kind of just gotten over it. I mean, if you can ever really get over something like that, but she's kind of come to terms with the fact that, you know, her daughter's gone, and I think they found like the body or something like that. And she starts seeing this man and he's a single dad, and when she meets her new boyfriend's child, the child looks exactly like her daughter who went missing. So there's a lot of mystery about this. There was kind of a lot going on in this novel. It was very like time jumpy, but I really liked it. At first I was very confused, but I thought that all the plot twists were so strong. Like, I'm definitely not reading this for the characters. I will say the characters weren't very fleshed out at all, but the plot twist itself was amazing, and I cried at the end. Like, it was actually a very, very heartbreaking novel. It was definitely on the darker side of some of the thriller mysteries I've read, but it really broke my heart. Like, it was so good. I really loved this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars just because I don't think the writing style was like perfect. It's not my perfect thriller, but it's definitely very high up there. And yeah, I do have a full reading vlog for this one, the same as 7 Days in June. So if you do want to hear more extensive thoughts, then that reading vlog is up on my channel. After that, I read Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmis. This is a historical fiction. We follow our main character, Elizabeth, and she is a scientist in the 1950s. And we basically follow her entire life. Like, we follow her from when she was in university to all of a sudden she is a single mother, and all of the hardships that she faces being a female scientist in the 1950s. She also goes on to like be the host of her own cooking show to try and support her child. Like, there's a lot going on in here. And I think I gave this 3 stars. There were aspects about it I really liked. I really loved the writing style. It kind of felt like I was reading a memoir, well, not a memoir, but like a biography of a real human being. And it was really well written. For example, our main character has a dog, and sometimes we get to see kind of like the thoughts of the dog. Like, it's a little bit magical. Like, the dog has its own opinions and has its own mind, and we get to hear from the dog, which I thought was really fun. Like, I thought that was a really fun aspect. I really liked all of the side characters. My one issue with this is that it's so heavily about feminism. Like, it's 100% about how women were treated in the 1950s, and a woman who's like fighting back at the patriarchy. Yet one of the main plots was all about the man in her life. And it just felt a little bit backwards to me. I loved the love story in here. I was really rooting for them. But like the ending, having it being all about this like man in her life and like his history and his heritage, I was like, I don't really care about the white man anymore. Like, yeah, I just felt a little bit, I don't know, a little bit all over the place. But that was kind of like my main gripe with it. I think massive trigger warnings for sexual assault and for violence against women, like that stuff was really awful. I didn't really want to read about it, to be honest. I feel like if you are going to write this novel about this heroine in the 1950s who's fighting back at the patriarchy, I also don't really want to see like really awful things happen to her. It kind of didn't feel as much of a triumph for women than I would have liked. That being said, I think it was very well written. I'm also just not the biggest historical fiction fan, so I think that goes into it. But yeah, I did like aspects of it. I especially like the dog. Like, I feel like the dog was my favorite part. I feel like this is the sort of book that like all of my mum's friends are going to recommend to me for the next 5 years, and I'll just have to politely nod my head. Next, I read another Kindle book. This was Kindle Unlimited, and this is Say Yes by Candy Steiner. Now, I really like Candy Steiner's writing style, and this is no exception. Like, I thought that her writing style was great, like really easy to read, really easy to digest. However, I did not love this book for many reasons. This was 2 out of 5 stars, and basically it's this like fleeting dramatic romance set in Italy. Our main character is an art student, and she's really highly strung. She's a massive perfectionist, and so she decides one night to challenge herself and be like, I'm gonna say yes to everything. And then this like older boy in her class, who's like one of those like kind of brooding types, sees her out and is like, I will help you on this journey. And then they fall into this sort of like friends with benefits relationship, but they're definitely like in love with each other sort of vibe, and they have this like Italian romance. I think the biggest thing for me is that it was incredibly melodramatic. Like, oh my god, like I just feel like humans don't really act like that. It was giving, I don't even know what it was giving. It was just giving something that I didn't like, and it's just the melodrama of it all. Like the first section of the book, like the prologue, our main character is like, the biggest mistake I ever did was fall in love with him. And I'm like, okay, so from the get-go, I know that it's going to be drama. I know that it's going to be a bit over the top, and it definitely was. There were aspects about it that I liked. For example, like I mentioned, Candy Steiner's writing style. I loved the Italian setting. I loved that they're like artists. Another thing that I really didn't like though is, first of all, this is to my tastes. I don't like male leads who are like, you could never love someone like me, like I'm so damaged, I'll ruin your life. It's like, shut up, like literally just shut up and go to therapy. Like seriously, it's exhausting to read about. So I just don't love characters like that. And this guy, like, shut up. Like, yeah, sure, he went through some tragedy, but like go to therapy about it. Don't like involve this woman into your like life and then be like, no, I could never be with you. Come on, lad. And then also something that just really rubbed me the wrong way is that our female main character had a birth defect when she was born, where I think she's like missing some fingers, or one of her hands wasn't fully developed. So she's just got like a thumb and a pinky and then just kind of like little stubs, and she was born like that, and she's had to overcome that disability, which, you know, love the representation, but I feel like it was handled not very nicely. Like our female main character for the majority of the book is being like, I'm so disgusting, I'm deformed, no one could ever like me. And I'm like, imagine if someone else had that birth defect and that disability, and they pick up this book, and for fucking 80% of the book they're hearing how ugly they should feel about their disability. It really rubbed me the wrong way, and it was just constant. And I feel like, sure, maybe if our main character kind of overcame her mindset about it and was like, actually, you know what, like, I love this about me, it makes me me, like blah blah blah, then maybe I could have forgiven it a little bit more. But we didn't really get much of that, and because she was just constantly talking about how ugly her hand was, it just left a really bad taste in my mouth. This isn't own voices for this particular birth defect, so it's like, why are you saying that? Like, why are you writing those things? It just made me really sad. It just genuinely made me really sad and just feel really uncomfortable. That's all I'm gonna say about it. It was just a big disappointment. 2 out of 5 stars. I will continue to read Candy Steiner though. Maybe just not her more melodramatic books. Maybe her fun college romances. Oh, okay, yeah, this is when I had my 3 2-star reads in a row, so yeah, the next couple of books weren't great. Next we read Gallant by V.E. Schwab. This is basically about this 16-year-old girl. She's at this like home for troubled girls, and then she gets this letter from an uncle she didn't know she had, and he invites her to his home called Gallant. She goes to this home and it's very much haunted, and her uncle is not there. Her uncle is dead, and then instead she's got this cousin there and 2 of the people that work for this manor, and they're like, you can't be here, like it's haunted, it's evil, we're trying to save you. Oh my god, I just feel like this book was all flowery writing and no substance, and trust me when I say I love lyrical writing. I love when it's super descriptive. I love poetic prose, but this, it needs to have something backing it. It needs to have like some character work or some plot work, and this didn't have any of those things in my opinion. I just felt like it was very, very weak. A lot of the time I didn't know what was going on. I think some of the illustrations that we got were really beautiful. Like, the book is really beautiful. Like, hello, this is gorgeous, but it just kind of goes hand in hand with the writing. Like, it's very beautiful writing. It's just not for me at all. It's just disappointing because haunted house stories are some of my favorite types of stories, and I really have loved V.E. Schwab's previous work. Like, The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue is one of my favorite novels. The Vicious and Vengeful duology, like, that, a couple of my favorites. I think V.E. Schwab is an amazing writer, but I think her writing is best when it comes to a really strong plot. Like, she needs a really strong plot to add the flowery writing to, and this just did not have that. So I was very disappointed by this. It's no surprise that no one is really speaking about it, because especially because V.E. Schwab is such a popular author. Everyone talked about Addie LaRue when it came out. I haven't heard a peep about this one, and I can kind of see why. Next, I read The Soulmates by Sally Hepworth, another 2-star read. This was a mystery thriller, I believe. And basically we follow this married couple. They are a family, they have a couple of kids. They moved to this great house in Melbourne, like in this little beach town, but the house is directly on top of like this cliff. And that cliff is known as a spot where people go to commit suicide. And our male main character, he saves a couple of people from committing suicide, and then one night there's this woman there and she jumps and he's not able to save her. And then like a mystery is kind of going along with that. Like, was this family connected to this woman in any way? Turns out they were, and all of the mystery but like behind that. I just feel like, for me, it's really hard to make a thriller mystery boring, because it's one of my favorite genres. I love it. It's really hard to make it boring. Sally Hepworth managed it. There weren't any strong plot twists. Like, I've seen a lot of people describe this as very twisty. No, where were they? The characters were super weak, their motives weren't strong whatsoever. Like, there was literally no strong motives at all, and I just really didn't care. Like, the writing wasn't for me. I do have 2 other Sally Hepworth books on my TBR shelf, and I will give them a go, but unfortunately this one wasn't great, and I've just heard praise, and I feel like I was bored. Then I read another book on Kindle Unlimited, and I actually had an amazing time with it. It was The Housemaid by Frida McFadden. I've heard so many people talking about this. Like, this has been very highly praised, and I really liked it. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. This is the sort of thriller that I love. So many plot twists, like edge of my seat, like I'm a bit spooked. This is those vibes, and I really, really liked this. Basically, we follow our main character, Millie. She has just gone out of prison, or she's been out of prison for a little bit, but she's really struggled to find a job. And then one day, it kind of seems like too good to be true. She gets a job as a maid and a babysitter, like live-in nanny essentially, for this really wealthy family. She's over the moon. She loves it. But when she gets there, the mother and the lady of the house, she's really nasty to Millie. She's so nasty to her, and she gaslights her. Millie's just really confused, and she's like, this woman has got something wrong with her. And the solace that she finds is in the woman's husband. There's a bit of a romance that starts up between Millie and the husband, and that is all I'm going to say, because it's so plot twist heavy. I really don't want to spoil it for you guys, but it is so good. Like, the plot twists I did not see coming at all, and usually I'm really good at guessing them. But I was reading it and it was like, I didn't care to guess. I was just engrossed. Like, maybe if I thought about it a bit more, for sure, but I was just swept off my feet, engrossed, and I didn't want to spend time or waste time trying to figure out what it could be. I just wanted to go along for the ride. Our main character, Millie, was fantastic. I actually think all of the characters were really well fleshed out. Was a bit cheesy and cartoony, absolutely, but like, the storytelling was so good that I just didn't even care. I really, really loved it. I thought it was amazing. And now I'm reading the sequel. I've only just started the sequel, but I'm really excited to read more of Frida McFadden, because I know that she's got a lot of thrillers out there, and this one was just fantastic. I had a great time. 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read another thriller. Clearly I was in a bit of a thriller mood this month. I read The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. I read this for my most recent 24-hour readathon, which should be my most recent video. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars at the time, but after some reflection, I'm going to give it 3 stars, because there's just one thing that I couldn't really get behind, and I didn't really notice it at the time. But then after I had finished it, I was like, hang on, that doesn't sit right with me. But this book is about 3 separate characters. We follow them on their journey. Basically, in the past, there was this mystery that had happened. There's this giant manor in Chelsea that was like very much locked up, and there were 3 dead bodies, but upstairs there was a baby who was very healthy and alive in this crib, like kind of abandoned with these 3 bodies. And that was a mystery. We follow 3 people that are linked to that mystery from the past, and I think that mystery aspect was really, really good. I liked seeing how our 3 protagonists were all linked, and I love a cult vibe, like very culty, and this definitely felt like a very cult story, which I loved. I thought the characters were all really strong. I really liked them, but my one issue with it is a trope that I don't love. It's a trope that I don't love, and basically it's, without spoiling too much about the book, predatory evil gay man. I'm sick of seeing it everywhere. I see it all the time, and it's actually such a damaging trope. It's so damaging to the queer community, and for a straight woman to be writing this like gay man who is evil and a predator, it just doesn't sit right with me. I don't love it. To be honest, I don't love it. Apart from that, like, I really did enjoy the book. And I know there's a sequel, but I probably won't read the sequel because I feel like it's going to be much more of the evil predatory gay man, and I just don't really want to read about that. Like, that's not fun for me. I want to stress there were definitely other characters in this novel that would be considered evil that weren't gay, but the fact that like the one evil gay character and the one gay character in fact was incredibly predatory, it's just a stereotype that I think does more damage than people realize. So I didn't love that aspect about it, so that's why I'm giving it like a low 3 stars instead of the 4 stars that I had given it earlier. Then I read another book on my Kindle, which was actually such a surprise and was so fun. I actually got it for free from the Amazon store, and then I picked it up on a whim because I was like, this seems really silly, so let's just read it. And I had a really good time. I gave it 3 stars, but like a high 3 stars. It was called The Billionaire's Wake Up Call Girl by Anika Martin. Please ignore the title, like it's not a great title. Basically, it's a billionaire, like enemies to lovers workplace romance. And our main character, she's at this job that she doesn't really want to be in, but she's in it because she gets a really good bonus if she like stays there for a certain amount of time. And her boss is this really big scientist. He's a billionaire and he's just really grumpy. And our main character somehow gets roped into organizing the boss's wake-up call, and it all goes a bit tits up, so she ends up being the wake-up call. Something goes wrong and she ends up accidentally insulting him, and he's like, oh. And then he's kind of like falling in love with her. So it's also hidden identity. And then she's like, oh my God. And they have these amazing conversations during the wake up call, but he doesn't know that the girl's right under his nose. And he's like, let me know who you are. But then she doesn't want to like tell her other superiors that she's like fucked up this one job that she's had. It was just really fun. And I really liked the romance. I liked how it developed. I liked the characters. It was a good time. There were some giggles. The writing was definitely cheesy at times, but I don't know, it was nice. It was genuinely nice, and it was nice to read something that wasn't super serious. Like, it was nice to just escape for a bit and live in this world. And yeah, I really liked it. It was a fun time. And then I read something that wasn't as fun, but still a good book. I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. It was Full Tilt by Emma Scott. This is the first book in a duology. I'm still uncertain if I am going to be reading the second one, but I read this again in my 24-hour readathon, and it was a bit heartbreaking. There were a few tears that were shed. Basically, we follow our main character Casey, who is the lead singer in a rock band. She's got some trouble with drugs and alcohol because of previous traumas in her life. She uses substances to escape. And then one night, the limo driver, who is this man called Jonah, he kind of looks after her and saves her. Jonah's got some problems of his own. He has a very severe heart condition, and he's like, I can't be in a relationship because I can't ruin someone's life. But they end up kind of falling in love anyway. A lot of the book was them in a relationship, so there was a lot of really beautiful like slice of life romance moments, and I really loved that about it. It's really sad. It's a really sad book. I was expecting it to be like toxic and like, I don't know what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting this, but it was beautiful, and I really do recommend it if you're looking for something really heartbreaking but really tender and really sweet with just characters to fall in love with. I highly recommend Full Tilt. I can't say anything about the sequel, but it was really nice, so I really recommend. And then finally, the last book that I read in February was my Patreon book club book, and that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I have a full reading vlog for this on my Patreon, but I really enjoyed this, guys. There's really no surprise here. I really loved this. I really loved the discussions that were to be had in this. But basically, this is, people call it historical fantasy. I wouldn't say it's all that fantasy heavy. Like, I wouldn't say that the magic is a massive part of it. I would call it more speculative fiction. Our main character, Robin, he has been recruited, I guess, to study at the University of Translation because the British Empire empire need him because he's fluent in Cantonese and Mandarin. And yeah, there's a lot of political intrigue in here. There's a lot of discussion about how people of color were treated in the 1800s. Really, really necessary discussions. I went very, very in depth on this in my reading vlog and a live show that we had as well. I really, really liked it, but I did give it 4.75 stars just because of the lecture scenes towards the beginning of the novel when our main characters are at Babel and they are studying. There are a lot of lecture scenes about linguistics and translation and languages that just went a little bit over my head. Like, I just kind of struggled to get through some of those scenes, and I'm not too proud to admit that I might not be intelligent enough to understand those scenes, and that is fine. But there was so much more in here that I understood, and I feel like I really, really understood some of the more necessary themes in this novel. I think R.F. Kuang is one of the most, if not most, talented and intelligent authors in publishing today. I was blown away. The lecture scenes were hard, but the rest of the book was 5 stars. Like, it was just incredible. I think I will be sitting with this book for a very, very long time. I would love to read some discussions with R.F. Kuang to hear more of her thoughts about this, and I cannot wait to read her next release, which is coming out this year. I was just, yeah, I loved this so much, and R.F. Kuang is definitely one of my favorite authors because I also love the Poppy War so much. And yeah, it was just amazing. Writing style, everything, so good. But you definitely have to be in the right mindset to read this because it's very serious and very heartbreaking at times, but highly recommended. It was just so excellent. So that is everything that I've read in February. Thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know all of your thoughts down below if you agree with me or if you disagree with me or anything like that. And please let me know what your favorite book of February was as well. A cheeky reminder that all of my socials are linked down below, as along with my Patreon. So if you do want to see heaps of extra content from me, that is all on the information on the page, which is linked. But yeah, again, thank you so much for watching. I love you all so much, and I will see you very soon in another video.